We're recording.
Oh, I really wanted some water. I am not
Is
prepared.
the water going to be the thing that allows you to speak at the regular volume?
It's going to be the thing that allows me to speak.
At all. Okay, fair enough. I can handle that. This is First Person Present, a podcast from Hughes House about writing, reading, living, and everything in between. Join us for real talk about our lives on the page, the craft of telling compelling stories, and the realities of the writing lifestyle. Well, writing's about the same for you. Writing's about the same for me.
Yeah.
I have maybe another session in me until I'm finished with this first chapter that I've been going through for the past couple of months, so I feel pretty good about that. I also have kind of had to just accept the fact that the piece is in the state that it's in, and I can't see through it with penetrating X-ray vision at this juncture right now because there's just so many things going on in our lives that I have to apply the changes that I said I was going to apply and move forward, not feeling like I have a total thorough handle on the chapter. But just in the spirit of keeping things moving, being able to get to chapter 2 and then being able to get to chapter 3, not bogging down too much in chapter 1, which I frankly kind of liked when I read it the first time through. So if I read through the complete draft, felt that chapter 1 was strong, then why belabor the point, Just enjoy it for what it is and add the things that I wanted to add and then move on.
Yeah, I think also it's important to notice when you really like something because it's a pretty rare feeling.
Sometimes it can be, especially as you get further in revision, it can feel more and more rare. Yeah, it's interesting. I feel that my revision right now is feeling rather imprecise, and I think that it lends itself to my reading is feeling a little bit blurry as well. I've got Muriel Spark sitting on my nightstand right now, the driver's seat. I read the first chapter 2 nights ago. I really enjoyed it. I felt that it was really exciting, but it sort of like washed through me in a way. And then when I went to read it again last night, I was like reading the first page and I like kept reading the first page of that second chapter. And I was like, nothing was entering my brain. I was like, wow, is this what it feels like when people who don't read books try to read a book that's weird? Because this book is very strange. Like it's a strange point of view. There's a very wide distance between the narrator and the character and the reader and the character. We don't really know very much about her. We're learning a little bit at a time. And I'm struggling. I'm enjoying it, but my eyes start looking in other places in the room, and then I'm not reading anymore. And then I'm thinking about, I don't know, the shelves that I'm building or the car that we bought or, any number of things that are just the logistical things on the list. So it's funny because one thing that I wanted to talk about today was actually with regards to that Reddit post that we started last week when we recorded. I want to read what my question was because it led to kind of an interesting comment that was like shade against me personally. That made me I was like, okay, fair enough when they said that. And I've just been thinking about it kind of a lot since then. So the thing that I wrote was, I'm used to writing at a nice clip, maybe 500 words or something per day. But lately I'm feeling bogged down with pages on pages of research and I'm having trouble averaging out 250. Add to that the responsibilities of dog ownership and a baby on the way in a couple months, and my writing pace has really slowed down. Frustrating. That's what I said.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I had a couple of people, not a couple, like quite a few people came in and they chimed in and said what they were struggling with at the time as well. But the one that has really, I think about it oftentimes over this past week with sort of like a sour taste in my mouth, honestly, is one that says, if you're an expectant father, please give yourself a break. Reality zone. You're living with a pregnant person. My wife was forgetful and angry at that stage in pregnancy. Your wife and baby are the most important things in the world. Writing will be with you when you have more strength. If this is your first, you're making so many changes in your life already. And that's it. That's all that was said. And I thanked this person who said this to me. I tried to be very cordial, but I was also just like, you know what? Fuck that. I feel that I've maintained my writing practice through so many different changes in my life since I was like 19 years of age that I really do take it as a legitimate personal struggle that I'm dealing with this brain fog through these like intense changes in our lives right now. And it's not something that it's very easy for me to sit here and say, well, all these big things are happening in our lives. It's okay if my writing slows down a little bit. I don't feel comfortable just letting it go in that way.
I will say that I think that even though you have been with your writing for a very long time, I have been told, and I don't know yet, but I have been told that having a child is probably one of the most sort of massive changes, let's say, that a person goes through. Just in terms of adaptation and life recalibration, habit recalibration, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know. I think that probably varies ultimately from person to person, from level of participation, et cetera.
There's plenty of people who are just going to, abandon their children in the gutter and
or who just don't kind of react to change in quite the same way that others do. I don't know. But the thing that I was going to say is that I think that more importantly, it's probably useful to be comfortable with the sloggy, brain foggy periods of time when you're experiencing in writing a project. Because I think that that's just a very common part of any writing project. And I don't think that the necessity for that is having a baby on the way or living with a pregnant person or having a dog or any of those things. I think it's probably something that happens to everyone, and it's probably inevitable in being with something for a long time. And in your case, especially, you'll be with this project for a very long time.
Have been already.
So it's a very long book. You've been with it for a long time. I think you should expect that you'll be with it for quite a bit longer.
Yes, that's the plan, at least.
So I would be surprised if this isn't one of many fogs.
Of course. And one of many fogs that I've already experienced, I think, is the thing that I'm reacting to with this. I also just think, we were talking about this the other night about how there is a culture of self-permissibility that is, I would say, like the main way that people deal with discipline in 2025, which is, all right, this is going to be really hard. And if you don't do it, that's okay. Just don't do it. Just allow yourself to rest if you need rest. Self-care is going to be very important for you. All of these things. And these are things that I like fully subscribe to, by the way, and say to my clients all the time when they're stuck in their projects. And when it comes to my own life and my own project, I'm like, but maybe you should just toughen up and just write the damn book anyway, So I don't really know where that leaves me. It just sounds, when I say it out loud, like, oh, just somebody being hard on themselves. But I think that there's something a little bit different in there about when you should pick your battles to go easy on yourself, when you should power through anyway and just write the damn scene just because you need to. Because I know every time that I've woken up completely bereft of ideas and then gone to the cafe and forced myself to write 500 words like I did today, for instance, and I was a total blank brain when I woke up this morning, I walk away from the cafe thinking, oh my God, hell yeah, that was exactly what I needed to do today.
Yeah, I think this is where habit kicks in a really meaningful way. So I guess I'm also a proponent of self-care because to not be one nowadays would probably be, it's like fascism.
You'd be pilloried in the town square, I think.
Yeah, I mean, you're supposed to value self-compassion.
You're supposed to value yourself and your health and your well-being.
My excuse
So
is that
we're
I'm
told.
Eastern European. I really don't. I'm not very good at self-care. I'm not, admittedly, very good at it. So I will say that. So I'll preface this by saying I'm not particularly good at it, and that also I see the value in it. But I think that despite all of that, habit is a different thing. So this is why I think trying to eliminate too many decision-making things around writing. So I recently listened to an interview between Chelsea Hudson and Sebastian Castillo, who just published a book called Fresh Green Earth.
Fresh Green Life.
Fresh Green Life. I'm sorry about that. And I think it's his 6th book, or it's his 5th published book, and he's currently in the process of writing a 6th. So he's quite prolific, and basically he just said that he doesn't write every day. I don't think that he's able to. At this point, he teaches quite a bit. But the thing that I kind of took away from that was helpful to me is that he does just he powers through drafts when he has the time to do it. For instance, he had the summer, so he just worked through a revision of the 6th book, and he created parameters around it so that he could finish the draft given those parameters. So he realized, for example, that if he wrote X amount of words a day for the time that he had, he would have a 60K draft, which, that's what he decided he was going to do. And he tries to eliminate, and I think this is what many writers do, he tries to eliminate too many choices, so too many decisions. So he comes into the writing session with some amount of knowledge of what he's going to be writing. And that requires a little bit of planning on a writer's part. But I think, again, you can be compassionate and kind and be productive with your writing life, I think.
Yeah, I think that there's the middle road between flogging yourself and producing completely emotionless slop that you only produce out of pure necessity.
Right.
And taking care of yourself so that you're able to actually produce that kind of lush green work that you do need rest, really, and recalibration to get to. You're not going to make the deepest insight on your manuscript on hour 12 at the desk. That's just not what hour 12 at the desk is good for.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that, at least for me, I think that I just want to know that I can be there for my writing when it's not fun and exciting anymore. Or I guess in that phase. That's just not a phase I'm in with my writing right now. And I don't have the expectation that I will be in that phase all the time. We've talked about this before. It's a very strange thing to keep returning to, that this isn't fun. But I don't think that that's actually really even what I mean. So anyway, probably having a baby and a dog and also having to do laundry and be a person in the world creates complications for writing. But I find that you need that stuff, because I think if the only thing I was doing was writing, then I wouldn't have anything to write about.
Yeah, I've definitely not enjoyed the times of my life when I had nothing to do but write my novel.
Yes.
When it's been for long periods of time.
Yes.
Traffic swarms like bees against the banks. Glass half nervous. Glass half nervous.
It's question time.
It's question time, ladies and gentlemen. We've got questions hot off the press, hot off the internet, ready from my screen to my eyes, to my brain, to my lips, to this microphone, to the internet again, and then back into your ears, where you will hear the words of these anonymous Redditors. First up, of Bluffton Town. Querying my novel makes me want to make an arsenic milkshake. I'm starting again in September, but I need to research agents, edit my query letter, etc. I have another book I'd rather be researching/writing, and I'm traveling soon, so I'll be busy. I have to do it now, and I hate it. The query process. So for those of you who aren't familiar, a query letter is a document that you have to write when you are trying to find representation for your novel. So we talk a lot about writing our books because as writing coaches, that's kind of the main thing that we contend with is making books out of not books. When people don't have a book and they want a book, they first have to write it. And that is oftentimes the biggest hurdle that people have to get over in the writing process is the actual creation of the book. But there's this whole nether realm after the book is written about finding agent representation, finding publication, and this is all the stuff that people really want to know about, usually before they've written their book. And it's the least helpful part to learn about until the book's actually written. But the query letter is a very formulaic, single-page little document that basically pitches yourself as the writer and your book to a prospective agent who would then go and sell it to a publisher, if all goes well. Anything I'm missing here?
No. Oh, the query letter has comparative titles in it, which puts your book in context, in the greater sort of context of other published books, so that potential agents can also understand what sort of project you have and get a sense of where in the, let's say, the imaginary bookstore your project is shelved. So comparative titles are a very big part of the query letter.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the component parts. Usually you start by introducing yourself, who you are, your background. You then have to say a plot synopsis, basically, like the hook of the entire book. You then have to say if the book is complete, the length, the genre, and those comparative titles. And like these different components will slot around into different paragraphs, basically, depending on who you talk to. But those are the main components. And then, of course, the sample for whatever. Every single person I've ever talked to has said that the query letter is their least favorite part of the entire process of publication and everything like that. It's just not thought of as a very pleasant experience.
Yeah, querying is generally unpleasant. There is the opportunity for rejection. I just got a rejection the other day for an essay, and I felt very sad for a day. And I had to write about it in my journal. And I thought, my God, your teenage years are never behind you. Here I am writing about rejection and feeling sad in a notebook again. So
yeah, where you might not even get that rejection and it's really more of just a ghosting vibe is very common nowadays as well. And I mean, there's a million podcasts and articles and webinars and any kind of media that you could possibly want out there about how to write the perfect query letter. So we're not going to go over that right now. I don't think that that's going to be helpful for anybody. What I think is really important to talk about with regards to the query letter is kind of how it can guide your writing process or how it's part of your writing process, even if it's something you don't think about until the very, very end after the book is done. So like when it comes to the query, the first thing that I want to talk about is that you don't want to be thinking about any of this stuff until you have a draft of a book. If this is a nonfiction book with a proposal and everything like that, the story's a little bit different. But especially if you're writing fiction, do not start thinking about the query letter or asking any of these questions until you have a book already on paper. You're just going to be disappointed. It's a very discouraging conversation, I think, for a lot of people to talk about all of these nuts and bolts that you need to get into there. But I don't think that it has to be a really negative experience. I think especially now, there's so many examples available online of what a query letter should look like that it actually becomes like pretty easy, especially if you're talking to somebody who knows your work, to kind of think, okay, what are like the 4 sentences of my plot that are really exciting or can hook someone and will really represent my work as a whole. But besides that, it can, I think, act as just a moment when you really take the idea of your book and you focus it down to a very, very small little pinpoint of a synopsis, essentially a log line. And that can sort of teach you something about your story that when you're in the long, grueling months of writing your draft, it's really easy to lose sight of, the big picture idea. So it's an opportunity for that.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. I had to write jacket copy as an exercise in graduate school, and it was really difficult. And we all read our jacket copy, and we had done this after we had done thesis workshop, which means we, and it was a very small group of us, it was 11 of us, were very familiar with one another's projects at this point. And so the jacket copy, when we were reading it, was something where 10 other people can reflect back to you whether they felt that the jacket copy was a representation of what they actually had read of your project. And I remember finding that exercise extremely uncomfortable and extremely helpful because it was interesting to see how hard it is to distill a very big thing into something small, but everything can be distilled that way. So I do find that one of the benefits of a query letter writing exercise, even if that's all it is that it does really force you to think about what is essential about my project, right? There are all these small things and all these, B stories and side plots and, small themes and whatever. But what's the essence, right? If I have to boil this thing down. So I think it's a good point, Josh, that you're making about the value of that exercise, even if it is uncomfortable and does not lead you to sell millions and millions of copies and make your way to the New York Times bestseller list.
This next question is from Aria. Aria is getting her bachelor's degree in creative writing in English with a concentration on fiction. She's being forced to write so much for school, and it's really slowed down her personal writing. Academic creative writing problems here. This is interesting because I think that there is a lot of advice floating out there about graduate degrees for creative writing, whether you should go into the academy for something like this, or whether writers should just stay home and write.
Stay home and write.
Yeah, this is coming from me, who does have my bachelor's degree in creative writing, and then Dasha, who has her master's degree in creative writing.
But not my bachelor's degree in creative writing.
I had that experience a lot of times when I was an undergraduate where I was thinking, why am I writing, a villanelle when I want to be writing my short story or something like that? Because I was taking a lot of different kinds of classes with different objectives, and it felt like I was being spread really thin and didn't get to work on my quote unquote personal writing, even though theoretically that's what I was doing all the time when I was there, right?
The problem with life is that there is a finite amount of time and attention that can be dedicated to any one thing. So sacrifices must be made. And ultimately, something is going to have to suffer. If you are finding that you have set out to write a novel and you are spending an inordinate amount of time writing something else, like something for school or work, then you have to decide how necessary these things are to you. If they're necessary, and in many cases they are, I think the problem with some of the direction of the kind of advice that I'm offering here is that some people disregard the reality of life, right? Like, so for example, if in fact you do have to work, and most of us have to work from X amount of time to X amount of time, then that is an immovable object in your life, and you have to figure out how to fit writing around it. If you're having to do a lot of writing that is not the writing that you're having to do, that you're wanting to do, then the only advice that I can really offer is just try to figure out how much of that writing you really have to do, and try to figure out if you can prioritize your own writing first. I know a lot of writers that are teachers, which entails grading things and writing things for students. And what they typically do is they write first thing in the morning. So their most alert, active, sort of vibrant energy and attention and brain power goes to their personal project in the morning, and then the dregs of them
go to their students.
go to their jobs and their students and their whatever work. And that's a crazy thing to say, but I think that's true. And so for some people that's not, one of my professors used to write after work. So he wrote, actually for him it was the opposite, where he was a night writer, and so he would come home from work and write in the evening, and he just had that was his schedule. So I would definitely prioritize that, and I would shift the goalpost, right? So it's not going to be 3 or 4 hours of productive writing. It's going to be an hour, perhaps, if that's what you have. But if you're writing for an hour every day, that's going to add up. So
yeah, it always does. And I mean, I remember one of my professors for my undergraduate degree told us the story about how when he first graduated college, he had a journalism degree that he then went out and he was trying to write, I think, fashion reporting or features or something for like a local newspaper wherever he was from. And he found that the quickest way for him to stop being a writer and to just kill the dream was to make writing a part of his profession, essentially. So this is something I think about all the time, how I feel very fortunate that I don't have to produce words as part of my job to make money. You know, if I was like a full-time copywriter, for instance, and I was having to write an advertisement every single time I sat down to work and got paid by the word for writing ads, for instance, I would struggle so much to continue writing my creative work, considering it was the same muscle that I'd been working all that day on this terrible aspect of society that I really disagree with and don't like doing anyway, you know, which I find so often in the job. It's like, well, you don't like everything about your job. So being able to maintain that separation between my personal work and my writing has been invaluable in my life. I would not be a writer for money, I don't think. Of course, if I was like getting paid a lot of money for my writing, that'd be great. But without having my revenue untethered from my writing gives me a kind of creative freedom that feels really essential to me in my work.
yeah. I don't know if we've answered this person's question, but I guess the most helpful thing we can say is just try to separate these things and try to create some sort of a barrier between your personal writing and what kind of writing you're required to do under whatever circumstances, academic, professional, etc.
Yeah, I mean, what? You could just use ChatGPT to write your short stories for class and then write your personal work on your own. Terrible advice.
Terrible
Don't listen
advice.
to me.
Terrible advice. First person present, the podcast you didn't know you needed. I'm a terrible copywriter. I was trying to do an
To
advertisement.
just create an advertisement?
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't do it either. Don't worry. Thanks for listening. If you like what you've heard, check out hugheshouse.com, where you can find our writing community, our coaching and editing services, and more resources for writers. Book a free consultation call on our site to talk to us about your writing. We can't wait to hear from you.